We're going to take a look at Watson Analytics. Combined with Maximo, Watson will facilitate refining the data collected from Maximo and maybe other sources like telematics, sales information, and even outside sources like weather.com. Watson will allow us to predict trends and also an easy way to dynamically explore the data. So when we come into Watson, we have the data is already there, and Watson's already started to take a look at the data and starting to pose some questions for us, show us some trends. So maybe we might be interested in the purchase price and replacement price by a country, or look at the speeds that we're recording through the telematics. And look at that by city. So there are some things that Watson's seeing in the data that's suggesting for me to look. But I actually have come in with a question on my mind anyway. So I'm going to ask Watson to help me pose my question correctly. So I want to look at the purchase price of vehicles by manufacturer and also by country. So I'm going to ask Watson to help me frame that question correctly. And Watson says, okay, so I can look by country and manufacturer, by manufacturer and country. I think I'm going to choose manufacturer by country. And Watson's going to go out and look through that data and start to formulate a response for me. So what we're looking at here is a graph of by manufacturer and then what the average purchase price is by country. So, and if you hover over these, they all look sort of the same in this kind of bar chart. But if actually when I hover over and see what the average prices are, I start to see that really on average we spend about the same per manufacturer per country. So maybe that's not really the right question. What I'm really trying to figure out is how much do I spend by manufacturer every year on their cars? So maybe I want to change purchase price into something like maintenance charges. Okay, that looks a little better. And now I can start to see China actually has the most maintenance charges. And actually, they spend a lot here on Nissan. So I might start to want to drill into why that is. You can see also the United States is a second. We have a lot of issues with Ford. So if I come in and click into this a little bit, Maximo will allow me to see a breakdown of this by state. So actually, I have a lot of problems with those Fords or with those Toyotas in Michigan. So if I click into Michigan, then I start to see, hey, wow, it's all in Detroit. That's the main city. Now I can always go back to where I started. There's buttons that'll take me back and forth as I need to go. Now, if I'm looking at this chart, there are some things that I can do with this chart. So for instance, over here in the settings button, I could add additional columns or additional rows here as well. I also could start to narrow this data down. So maybe I'm only looking for a certain range of charges that I want to see either inside or outside that range that I have. So I can start to get that coloration and see that. And then I also down here in the bottom, the ability to create collections. So over time, if I like this set of data and I want to tag it and hold it to review it later, I start to have these collections that are saved for me by date and time. So I can start to bring those forward as well. Now, just for the niceness of the chart, the bar chart's okay for me. I kind of like that, but I might want to look and see what does it look like if I'm going to take this to a meeting. Maybe I'd like to have. I don't know so much about that one. Let's look and see what else do we have. Kind of a fancy one with using the words. It's just sort of a trendy chart to have here that's still looking at the data and posing by size what the values are. But I think for me, I'll probably go back to our bar chart that we had there. So I'm able to really easily change the visualization. And then also the color palette. So if you have a palette that you like a little better, you want to change the colors, easy enough to do there. So drilling in and drilling out. The other thing that I like to really look at is down here. This is the set of data, the fields that I've got, the attributes that are being provided to me through the various sources. So I'm going to look at maybe this is the asset maintenance charges. Maybe I want to narrow these specific charges. I only want to look at those that are between a certain range. Or maybe again, I can invert that so I'm only looking at the low charges and high charges and not so much what's the median value there. So I can easily control and filter the data that I'm looking at. Now, if I get a chart that I like and I want to share it with my friends or my boss, maybe even better, I could email it, download this information, download this chart, or even send a URL link, cut and paste that into an email, and then somebody else could take a look at this as well. The other thing that's happening in the background, if you haven't noticed, is up here in the top. So this is Watson's still looking at the data as I'm looking at it, and again, trying to suggest some relationships that maybe I hadn't thought of. And these you can look through these and say, okay, well, maybe I want to look at maintenance charges by installation date, or failure codes by asset maintenance charges. So in this, I can get a quick snapshot here, or I could open this chart into a new page and start to look at that data as well, and then drill into that data. As I'm looking at this data, I could start to compare that data. So comparing other attributes with with failure codes that I'm looking at here, create calculations. Another way of looking at the comparisons. Or just simply some average counts and minimum maximum charges off that data as well. So some summaries of the data and what we're looking at. And I can also start to look at, so we're looking at asset failures, failure codes, number of times that that failure code has occurred. So starting to, again, to really break down and drill into that data from some different sources. So being able to refine the data that I'm looking at, predicting the trends that are out there, and then dynamically exploring the data, that's what Watson's all about.